quorum? Okay.
Because we're not voting on anything.
So there's no official action.
Okay.
We just have to be fierce in our work session.
I'm gonna be really fierce.
Because we have to make up for.
I will be the fiercest. I already have a lot of comments. I've been writing my notes. Hold on. How are you? Doing good. Did you see our Facebook Live?
No.
Took a little tour of our new building. The new building.
Oh, okay.
This morning.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We only opened half.
All right.
Well, more than half, but like the pediatric specific operatories are not open yet. So we don't have all the equipment in.
Yeah.
And then the upstairs, yeah.
Were you in a trailer? Or?
No, it was just it was an old dialysis center.
Okay.
Was what the old dental building was.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so it's a huge upgrade.
Sure.
All the equipment's new.
Awesome.
So, but that is not in yet. So,
Yeah.
but we are open. It's open, serving patients starting yesterday.
Yeah.
Looks good.
Great addition to the community.
Yeah. The elevator's not operational yet.
Okay.
Elevator and then upstairs won't
So
be
it
done
fell out of
till
the pocket.
May.
Someone did the right thing and picked it up.
So, but the bottom
Because it does the
floor is
same thing
serving
with City
patients.
Hall visitor. They didn't know what to do
Check
with
out
it.
that.
When are you
Huh?
doing?
But me and Yvette were
It'll be
talking about it.
upstairs
So the lady
eventually.
behind the thing said,
Eventually.
"Oh no, it's right
Not
here."
right now.
That's so funny. So apparently, I think it's
So,
funny that you have City Hall
check
visitor,
it out.
because mine gives me access to everything in the universe.
It'll be good.
I'm gonna fix it. I'm gonna get a Sharpie and
That's
I'm
what I
gonna
was
write.
gonna do. Okay.
I will write on it. for
You found it? Where was it?
Someone picked it up
Oh.
Yeah.
and did the right thing.
Yeah.
I
So
like
I've been
your
to places
profile.
and they're like, you shouldn't have access. And I was like, I do. And I'm counsel. Because I just like badge in and I was like, I don't
She
know.
was so sweet. No, it's right here, Mr. Bentley. You need your name on it. I know,
So
right?
is good to go purchasing some? I guess that you could save that for the work
I'm sorry?
session. Like purchasing
Oh, okay.
someone
Then
else's
we will.
He's on his
They
way.
can sit in his morning.
stuff.
Excellent.
Who's on his way?
I had to update my thing.
Oh. It's wonderful.
Ew.
How about let me sit in the middle where the coats are?
Yep. You can sit right here.
Right here.
There you go, Mr. Mayor.
How are you?
How you feeling?
He didn't trust me. That's what he heard. He heard that
That's
I
what
was going to
oh,
be in charge, and he
Christine,
was
huh?
like,
Nope.
"Oh
Hey,
hell no, I have to be there."
It looks like an inquisition against you right now.
I'm sorry.
It looks like we're gonna do an inquisition.
I like that. I'm
That's
sure.
what it does, doesn't it? I'm already
Let's do
seeing
it.
it.
Oh, I like that. She's like,
Mm.
Let it sit
Okay,
out and
ready,
dry
ready.
so that it doesn't
Thank you.
smear. Now if it gets lost and found, someone will know where to do it.
How you feeling?
Well, I'm not feeling well. They're screwing with my blood pressure at the same time, so it's not. Yeah, it was low this morning. They took me off some stuff, so it won't really take effect for tomorrow. So
Would you like some water or coffee,
I
Mr. Mayor?
got water, thank you.
I do kind of feel like I'm in the Inquisition.
You're in the inquisition because we all sat here together.
That's kind of like
I'd
how we
move
do
to that
it.
side, but they're all
It looks like
behind
you're
me.
kinda like
testifying
how we do
before
interviews.
Congress.
Okay, I'm gonna-
Give the audience behind you.
I'm going to call the meeting of the Sierra Vista City Council, or the work session for the Sierra Vista City Council for the 12th of March 2019 to order. We have clerical note that we do have people that are missing due to the National League of Cities. On the agenda, the first thing we have is the meeting. We did the pledge. We have the Girl Scouts coming in for an awards presentation. And we have a consent agenda. Any comments on the consent agenda?
No.
Questions?
I have one comment. I always have comments on the minutes on the last page of the
I'm
minutes.
sorry.
I could in the consent agenda, item 2.1, and it typoed NAACP, so it should say NAACP. And they
Did you get that, Jill?
just title the organization correctly. So,
Okay. The next item we have is item 3 is a public hearing item. And I believe that's Matt.
Yeah. Mayor, members of council, is your hand up?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Matt.
The purpose of the
Sorry.
public hearing on Thursday is to collect community feedback on projects for the upcoming program year for community development block grant funding. As was the case in the prior years, we don't have the official estimate yet. Typically that arrives late spring, early summer. And so what we advertised with the notice of funding availability was the same amount as we received last year, which is $260,000. We have 60 days from the date the funding announcement is provided, or August 16th, to finalize the plan and submit it to HUD. So we did an advertisement. We received one funding request from NAMI Southeastern Arizona, and they'll be present on Thursday to present their proposal. And that's for $5,000 for a specialist to provide therapeutic activities for children suffering from mental illness. In terms of city projects, we're recommending. Mr. Mayor.
There's still the requirement on service like that for if it's continued, once it's issued, once it's granted, they have to have a performance where they increase it by 25% every
Right.
year.
Right.
And are they going to be able to do that without getting CDG money every year?
Right. It's not to supplant existing operations. It's to expand the capacity of programs that are being offered.
But they're not going to. Are they going to be able to sustain the growth that they're required to do it?
The burden's on them to show that.
Okay.
On Thursday.
Okay.
And they understand that requirement.
All right.
And there's a 15% cap on public services, which would be $30,000. In this case, we only have one application for $5,000, so we're well within that budget limit. In terms of city projects, we're recommending improvements to Soldier Creek Park and James Landwehr Park to augment the investment.
You mean James Landwehr Plaza? It's not
Plaza,
park.
excuse me. Okay. To supplement the scheduled investment to the North Garden Avenue streetscape and bolster the city's West End revitalization effort. Economic Development and Leisure Services have prepared a conceptual framework plan for the improvements to Soldier Creek Park. They could explain those in more detail to you, but we would ultimately create a master plan for your approval, but for the purposes of CDBG budgeting, it's important to keep the project category general so as not to lock yourself into a specific set of improvements, because that could change through the public involvement process in creating the master plan. And then
Go ahead.
one more thought.
Yeah.
And then on James Landwehr Plaza, we were contemplating a general sprucing up of the property, repainting the restroom building, and redoing some of the landscape there. And then you may be aware, we're in the process of acquiring a parcel of property adjacent to the north that could be included in the project as well.
So it would be a cleanup of the old Hatfield property as well.
And then something-
Yeah, that
was
that
that it?
was my comment.
Okay.
So you didn't want, on those improvements of those areas, we're leaving it just kind of open as general sprucing up, and we're not.
We don't have to be specific for
Okay.
CDBG budgeting purposes.
Okay.
We don't have to do a substantial amendment. If we, say we're going to do a certain facility improvement, and then through the public involvement process, we learned that there's a desire for something else. That's why, it's important to just characterize the project in very general terms.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not locked into a specific set of improvements.
Okay.
We have to do an amendment down the road.
Mr. Mayor. Matt, when we were talking about this, you mentioned that there would be some residual potentially for ADA improvements.
Yes, and that's the third project on the list is $40,000 for ADA ramps and sidewalk improvements to fill in the gaps in the target areas. And if the funding comes in above our estimate of $260,000, we would recommend that that increase be applied to that line item.
In the ADA, forgive me, I'm trying to picture Soldier Creek Park right now. That's the one that does not have access for ADA.
It does have access. We previously through CDBG had funded a ADA compliant pedestrian pathway into the park.
Okay, so, sorry.
From Taylor Drive.
Okay.
It's on the corner of Taylor and North Garden. So the vision is to create a community gathering space for neighborhood and community events by firstly installing electrical around the pedestrian pathway and extending the stabilized surface for food truck vendors or other types of vendors to set up during those events, as well as perhaps a small stage for entertainment, either a pedestrian bridge or a culvert crossing from the Soldier Creek Business Park. There have been conversations between economic development and the owner to perhaps securing a public parking easement for events that don't conflict with business hours to expand the supply of available parking. And so we're working through that process. And then regrading the vacant property at the, I'll call it the hill, at the top of the hill, fronting North Garden, to make that more usable, either for future redevelopment or some recreational type usage. And then replacing the temporary portable bathrooms with a permanent bathroom facility would be a huge upgrade that we would be proposing to the public going through the master planning process. And so those are our preliminary ideas. Obviously, they have to be vetted through our public outreach and develop a consensus that we bring back to you before we would move ahead with the engineering phase of the project. But we think we could go a long ways with the $175,000 that we're recommending for approval.
Anything else?
And just for my own understanding, if I could just kind of understand the process a little bit better for CDBG. So you said we were really looking to have about 30,000, or hoping to have, or we could have up to 30,000 grant applications, is what you're saying, and we only got one?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Okay. And those were specifically for service related, or could they have also been for infrastructure?
The $30,000 cap, or the 50% limit, is for public service activities.
Okay.
70% of the grant has to benefit low to moderate income individuals, and that could be through public facility improvements, housing, infrastructure, those categories of projects that I presented at your work session in January. And the annual action plan is the first year grant application to HUD. We'll be presenting at your meeting in April the 5-year consolidated plan where you'll establish the priorities that you want to pursue over the next 5 years in terms of categories of funding.
Okay.
So we, in developing this plan, relied on your last consolidated plan, but that could change depending on the direction we receive from council. But we're recommending doing fewer, larger projects to reduce the administrative burden than multiple projects, because there is a timeliness requirement with the expenditure of CDBG funds. And so it's much easier to get projects designed and let through our in-house staff, if they can concentrate their attention on one large project versus a series of smaller projects.
And sorry, and then just keep asking questions. Did we reach out to other? So I see that we went to. I know we have a public service agency distribution list, but then we went to Carmichael Neighborhood Association, the West End Commission.
Yes.
But there's other areas of our city that are low income or that aren't West End, and so I've heard comments just out in the, places that be, I guess, that there's a lot of focus on the West End, but there's other areas that are old and aging in our city too that aren't getting attention, or they feel aren't getting attention. And have we looked at any of those areas, or considered, or done any outreach there?
Well,
This is a public notice process,
Okay.
Right.
and it's noticed to everybody.
Okay.
They have to get up and actually do the due diligence to identify projects and issues and come back to the city and make an application.
Right, and I'm not aware of the other eligible neighborhoods in the eligibility areas having active neighborhood associations or homeowner
I
meetings
don't think they do.
that we can participate in or through. We are doing ADA sidewalks and ramps in Montebello,
Okay.
and that is included in the bid that was just put out this week. So they are receiving, percentage of the funding.
Okay.
Man, I might have missed it. With the Soldier Creek Park improvements, are we going west of Garden also? Where that, how the tunnel goes under Garden,
Culvert goes on.
the culvert that
Yeah,
goes
the
under.
Jim Wagner Plaza and the Hatfield
Okay.
property that will be just immediately to the north will be included in this
Okay.
project.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry if I
And
missed
will be
it.
part of the ultimately the sprucing up of the North Garden
Okay.
project.
Okay.
And we'll be meeting with the continuum of care providers next Wednesday to better understand their lack of response to the funding announcements and see if there's a better way of communicating with them. We had a public meeting here at City Hall. We had one nonprofit show up, and maybe it's the administrative, because administrative requirements just on our end. There's a reporting requirement on their end as well.
Yeah.
So the amount of money they receive, maybe in their final analysis, isn't worth pursuing.
Mm.
Those are the types of questions I'll be posing.
Okay. Thank
Anything
you.
else?
Yeah, just a couple of comments, Mr. Mayor. Getting to Sarah's question, it's true that over the past number of years, the reporting requirements and also just the requirements for what the nonprofits need to do in order to be in compliance with the grants have greatly increased, and that made it much more difficult for those entities to apply. So that may be a problem, but hopefully Matt can find out what's going on with that. Second, with regards to the project recommendation from staff this year regarding Soldier Creek Park, we recognize that there are still drainage needs that need to be addressed in Sulger and Fry. We have those two projects are going out to bid here, and hopefully the Basin and Timothy Lane Park will address some of the Sulger concerns, and of course then we'll see what happens with the Fry end of the project as well. But once we have empirical evidence on the ground of how that's working, then we'll probably come back with more improvements to those areas after this year's funding cycle. And finally, since three of your colleagues are out of town and probably will not make it back in time for the meeting on Thursday, they are aware that this is going on and that it would proceed, but we're recommending that after getting the public input, you table the item so that they can then address it and be there with you at the next meeting when they vote.
Okay.
Okay.
We ready to move on to item number 4? Ms. Adams?
Item number 4 and 5 are two related items. It's an administrative process for the Good To Go convenience store on Pride Boulevard. They have 2 liquor licenses at their current location, a liquor store and a beer and wine store, and there's a change of ownership, and they're required under the state law to do a public hearing to process this change on these two particular liquor licenses. The notice of the public hearing was posted on the facility, and we have received no comments, so if approved on Thursday, it will be sent back to the state.
Questions?
Just real quick, and this, I guess, really doesn't have much to do, but I understand they're obviously stacked. It was my understanding, I guess this is just for them and my personal edification, that the liquor law has changed and you don't need to quite stack it that way anymore.
I don't honestly know why they do. It could be that they had to and they don't have a second location to put the other one at this point in time, so they're keeping them both alive at the same place. That would be my guess, because the liquor store license itself would allow them to sell everything.
Correct.
So
That's I guess what I'm asking.
I'm guessing is they had a spare, and because you have to
Assign.
house it somewhere,
I know.
that
Yes.
they're just keeping it active in the same place. That would
Okay.
be my assumption.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else on that, on those two?
No, sir.
We'll move on to the next one, which is another liquor license, looks like. Ms. Adams?
See, you haven't heard from me in so long. Ms. Wingate down at the Peacock has finally decided to apply for a restaurant liquor license. So this is her application for that license. The building has been posted with the public hearing, and we again have received no comments one way or another about this license being issued. So if approved, it will be returned to the state with a recommendation of approval.
Questions? Seeing nothing, Ms. Flassar is going to talk to us about lights.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is a very simple update to an existing IGA. The IGA has been in place for a number of years, whereas the city can do emergency traffic signal maintenance in the ADOT right-of-way. Basically, the only thing this amendment is needed for is to update our move from the Safford district to the South Central district of ADOT. That happened about a year ago. And then also to reflect that a few additional street lights are being covered by this agreement that were installed along State Route 92. That's the extent of it. Do you have any questions?
It's a routine thing that we do so we can maintain the lights.
Yeah,
And we don't have to wait for somebody from Tucson or Safford to come down and repair them for us.
exactly.
Okay? All right, that is basically the agenda. Report, we have any report on recent trips, meetings, and future meetings? Okay, we'll go on to board and commission liaison updates, discussion.
Where the youth commission is gonna meet for the first time this month, now that we have enough members who are on and active to have actual quorum.
Good
news.
So we're very excited, I'm excited about that.
Okay.
And airport is awesome too. I don't wanna leave them out. I mean, they're awesome too, so.
Okay. Future discussion items and council requests. Mr. Petrucci.
Yes, this morning I was in receipt of administrative order from the Arizona Supreme Court naming Judge Conlog to head up our magistrate court operation. So that is in place now until the hearing is completed, which I believe is scheduled now for April 11th. So there's really nothing we need to do with the magistrate court at this time, since it is being covered by Judge Conlog. And obviously, the pro tem, Mr. Raymaker, is hearing our cases, so we're not seeing any issues there. In the meantime, I'm going to get with Mr. Gilligan at the county. Our current intergovernmental agreement with the county for court services expires at the end of the fiscal year, and this seems like as good a time as any to pursue amending and updating the session and, council meeting item coming up here pretty soon.
And I assume the sort of weird situation that we have found ourselves in with is what's going on is one of the things that we will amend the IGA with.
Yeah, the current IGA mentions, that the JP shall serve as the magistrate and that you have the ability to name. And looking at that, the institution really is what should be named, not individuals necessarily. But there's some quirks in there that need to be worked out. So I'll approach Mr. Gilligan and see if we can get that squared away to you guys' satisfaction for next fiscal year.
Any questions for Chuck? Questions or comments for anybody else on the staff? Thank you all for being here. Meeting's adjourned.
Short
Yeah, it's
Or
just
still stop.